Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 47 of Nostalgia Talk. I'm James, and did you guys really think that I wasn't going to be doing Nostalgia Talk this summer? I know at the end of the last video, I was like, have a good summer. But trust me, there's going to be some shows this summer. And to kick off the summer of 2022, I have with me the one and only Mark Saltzman. Welcome.
Hello, James. How are you doing?
I am very well. How was your day today?
Pretty good. Kind of toasty hot here in Los Angeles.
Oh God, it's hot here too. Like I've been out every night this past week. I've kind of had the place to myself for most of the week, and it's been so bloody hot every time I've gone for a walk. I've gone out with friends. I've been to barbecues, but yeah, it's so bloody hot.
Yeah. And if that's Nova Scotia, surely a sign of the apocalypse.
Yeah, well, I've always said that it's a lot easier to warm up than it is to cool down, because on a very, very cold day, you can always just put on a blanket. On a very, very hot day, even in AC, you're still drenched in your own sweat.
That's pretty much how I'm feeling today. Yes, thank you. You made it very graphic.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Mark Saltzman is a writer who has done a lot of work with the Muppets. He's worked on Sesame Street. He has done writing for the Jim Henson Hour, various Sesame Street productions, has also done work for film and TV specials and in theater. And for Sesame Street, he has also written a lot of classic songs for the show, such as Island of Emotion, Transylvania 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Take the Hand of Someone You Love, A New Way to Walk, and Caribbean Amphibian, which is one that gets brought up on this show quite a lot.
Oh, glad to hear it.
Yeah, I'm good friends with Ivy Austin, and yeah, she came on this podcast. Like, she was one of the first guests that came on this show.
Oh.
And I asked her, did you ever get to work with Jim Henson? And she said that she got to sing with him on Caribbean Amphibian. And I shot my fist up in the air like my favorite football team won the Super Bowl. And then I was like, oh, crap, because I have with me, and finally I brought it this time, I'm more prepared, a talking Kermit the Frog doll.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen this thing.
I have many a time. Talking and singing.
Mm-hmm.
The tropical sea, Caribbean amphibian. Won't you sing along with me? Won't you sing along with me? Ribbit, ribbit.
So there we go. That's I should have made that the Friday song on our Facebook page.
Oh yeah. It feels like the Caribbean out there in Nova Scotia, huh?
At the moment, yes. Yeah. It's funny because my very, very best friend in the whole wide world, her name is Sean. She lives in another country. She said this on a video on my YouTube channel, so I can safely say this to the public. She has a fear of frogs, which I can't say without smiling. Yeah. And the common joke between her and I, with me being a Muppet fan, she always says, oh, well, Kermit's cute and he doesn't look like a real frog. So I always say, well, he's just a Caribbean amphibian. He likes to hop in the tropical sea. So every chance I get, I just use that song to piss her off on purpose.
It has so many uses, that song.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, they got Jimmy Buffett to do it somehow.
Yes. It was. I can't remember how that happened, but he approached them or they approached him, and then it was just, well, he has to sing Caribbean Amphibian. I wasn't even part of the decision making. I was so happy to hear that. He does a good job with it too.
He absolutely does. Yeah, because that was in the Elmo Palooza special, which was one of the first Sesame Street things I ever saw when I was a kid. And then I rented a VHS tape from a library. It was called The Best of Kermit on Sesame Street, which featured Caribbean Amphibian. And I didn't really know the song name, but I knew the song. And then I hear it and I hear the lyrics. I know a tropical island with a mango moon and banana sunshine. And I was like, wait, this is the one that Jimmy Buffett did. And I was like 6 or 7, and I remembered that.
Yeah, and I hear he does it in his concerts from time to time.
Okay, I am totally going to a Jimmy Buffett concert now.
I think it's rare, but I think it happens. It might be when, if it's a matinee or something and he sees a family audience, maybe he does it, but it's definitely in rotation.
Go ahead.
And then I'll just, search it on YouTube and see, these kids, well, not kids, grown-ups. It's a sort of ukulele specialty. You know.
Well, I recently met Steve Whitmire at
Oh, yeah.
at a virtual fan convention. I didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
We talked like we're talking now,
Yeah.
and I got signed in, and I pulled out the Kermit doll the moment I see him, and I made him say,
Uh,
and Steve just died laughing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's Kermit now, right now. I mean, since post Jim, and then
Matt Vogel does Kermit now, but Steve did Kermit for about close to 25, 30 years.
right
wanna-
after
Yeah.
right was Steve
Yeah.
in the Kermit dynasty, the descendants of Kermit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim sang the original on and I remember trying to. I'm not that fluent a composer, but I was trying to get a real sort of Caribbean beat there. And,
So you did the music for that as well as the lyrics?
Yeah. And
Wow, that's
it
cool.
was a triplet. Do you know music? I know
Somewhat. I'm not really a musician, but I listen to music on like walks
it's a
every
kind
day.
of 1, 2, 3 in the middle of a four. Likes to hop in the tropical sea.
Oh,
It's a little
nice.
tricky, and I was trying to get him to do it as written, and how far can you push Jim Henson? When you're a fledgling writer, and I tried, and he eventually said, I don't really sing. I don't really know music. Kermit does, but I don't. So,
Well, yeah, Kermit plays the banjo.
yeah, so I just went with what he came up with. It's still good. Most of the time it's done that way, but I think the sheet music is written with the triplets in the Sesame Street songbook. So singer's choice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, Steve was saying about songs that Jim originated. Like I mentioned my particular favorite, which is "I Don't Want to Live on the Moon," which is a beautiful Jeff Moss classic. I said and Steve did that as Ernie in the Elmo Palooza special, and we were talking about that, and he's like, "Well, I don't think I could have done it as good as Jim."
Oh yeah, he was instinctively musical. A lot of times people like that. They intimidate themselves because they don't know music, they never study music, and they don't realize that they're natural musicians, which he pretty much was. It just came out, and it would come out as Kermit, as Kermit singing, and I think maybe there was some security in that. It was Kermit's voice that he was controlling, not his own. But you never hear if you hear Kermit singing a song, it's not flat, it's not out of rhythm. I mean, it's instinctively musical.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's begin by taking it way back in time. Let's get real nostalgic here. How did you first become interested in writing?
Oh, that goes way back to pretty much my childhood when the earth was molten, and and it was sort of in essays and things, just in school essays. I just found out if you made it funny, the teacher kind of was all over it. They just loved you for that. I think when you think about how many essays they read that are just kind of by the book, and it just seemed to be a trick to get a good grade, add some jokes, and that I guess I was interested in that because I was interested in getting good grades. So that I didn't know that was called writing. It was just kind of how to scam the teacher, and then it worked on college essays. It just kind of it seems to be still working. And one of these days, I'm not going to get away with it anymore. But it was that, and then people started telling me that I was a writer. Even in high school, because of doing this little card trick is all I thought it was.
Oh, that's interesting. So to you, so to you, you were kind of just like writing and then realize, oh wow, I really do see something in this.
When people started telling me that,
okay,
I needed the outside. I needed the teachers to tell me that it was good, and to say the words, you're a writer. when I was in high school. I mean, to hear that from authority figures, like what's a writer? I didn't grow up in that kind of environment of, artists and writers and all that. It was pretty much, my family, the neighbors, people had jobs and had shops, and my father drove a truck and then became a salesman. It's just very kind of workaday lives around me. And I think you hear this from a lot of people, but the Dick Van Dyke Show was on the air. And
I love the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yes, it's a nostalgia show. And, for my generation, you found out what a writer did, because it wasn't visible. The people writing television weren't there or introduced at the end of the show. But on the Dick Van Dyke Show, they were actually sitting in a room and making up jokes and sketches. And the other thing, I realized this recently, watching the original 101 Dalmatians, and that was the first time I saw a songwriter. Like, who knew where songs came from when you're a kid? They're just in the air, they're on the radio. But the idea that they're actually written, somebody at a piano, Roger was his name, in 101 Dalmatians, right? With a pencil and a piano and, sheets of paper crumbled up. I think that was the first image, certainly of a songwriter that ever came into my life. So, there's a job, songwriting, and comedy writing. There's another one, and then it seemed like that was the path I was on. In fact, it almost felt like, I've been on this path, all along, and now I see it's this job on the Alan Brady show. That was the Dick Van Dyke show they were writing, and my Alan Brady show turned out to be Sesame Street, but still it was, in the room with smart, funny people and producers, being producers. And that was pretty much the path.
A lot of past Sesame Street writers that have come on this show have often said, it's like, I've kind of talked about that, like comedy writing and songwriting, because a lot of the time, one of the things that they really like to do is parodies as well.
Yeah.
And you could write a parody song and you could write a parody skit, and
right.
That would be something, of course, for the adults to sit down. Like, do you know Lou Berger?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw him a couple of years ago out here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Lou came on here, and he Lou spends quite a bit of time in LA, actually.
Yeah.
And he was saying Waiting for Elmo, for example.
Yes.
That was one that he brought up, because it was like, then there's something for the parents to get. So it's like, oh my God, they're doing a parody of Waiting for Godot as Waiting for Elmo. And Chris Surf was on here and talked a little bit about using Cookie Monster to try to do a Run DMC record, healthy food, it tastes so, which is, of course, Cookie Monster basically rapping, which is hilarious.
Yeah. I think they started doing. Oh no, I did do a rap. I did Down Below the Streets.
With 14 Karat Soul.
14 Karat Soul, yeah, and that was a rap. And although there was actual singing in it too. Although that came. Maybe we started that. There'd be a rap section and then a song section in harmony. That's kind of a hip hop thing. And maybe that was already in the air at that time, but they did actually sing in harmony. They were kind of conversant in musical in both of those forms, R&B and rap. So they were the perfect ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how did you first get involved with the Muppets?
Let's see. It was through Muppet Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
That was my way in, because I one of the things I was doing to survive when I got out of college with an English degree, and just knew now I go to New York, and didn't know anybody, didn't know what to do. So I was taking various survival jobs, and I could play the piano, which was very helpful then in the 70s, because the cabaret scene had exploded, and one thing the cabaret artists needed was a piano player. So I was doing that, and I was writing for children's magazines at Scholastic, and on that path, I got into Muppet Magazine and into the Muppet Mansion for meetings, and I still wanted to do TV, you know, and film and everything. I knew doing these children's magazines was kind of a step, and but that's where I met Jim when I was working on Muppet Magazine and a lot of other Muppet people. But I can't think of my first TV assignment. I think that was Sesame Street, though. I think the first time I wrote for actual living live Muppets was Sesame Street.
Okay.
And then I did through that, you know, Jim Henson Hour and the live Muppet shows, those kinds of things.
I was actually going to ask you about Muppet Magazine because I haven't actually read any of them. I haven't been able to find them at any thrift shops anywhere. I guess they're pretty rare, but I do know that they involved a lot of celebrity interviews.
Yeah.
How is that? How is that done? The interviews that were written between the Muppets and a big celebrity, because a lot of the time these big celebrities would be like right on the cover.
Yes, it was. You know, it was like any magazine. You lead with a famous face. Let's see. Different people wrote in different voices. I think I wrote Kermit's voice and Miss Piggy's voice, especially Gonzo's. You know, there was a section of the magazine that was always Gonzo. It was like Ripley's Believe It or Not, you know, Oddities of the World through Gonzo.
Sounds like Gonzo.
Yeah. And well, that was the point, to sound like. And when you're writing like Kermit, you should sound like Kermit. And when you're writing like Miss Piggy, there should be a little competitiveness with the celebrity. You know, Miss Piggy trying to make it about herself, you know.
Of course.
So that was kind of the way it was done. I don't remember doing too many of those celebrity things because I had Gonzo. I can't remember the other. I do remember Henry Winkler was one person I interviewed.
Oh, that's cool. My father is away right now, but I have a feeling that when he hears this, he is going to be so jealous.
Oh, yeah, that was
like his sister, my aunt, said to me, the Fonz was his hero.
Oh, that's good. It's great to hear. Yeah. Does he know the Lords of Flatbush?
Somewhat.
It's an obscure movie from the 70s, pre-Happy Days.
Okay.
And he basically played a Brooklyn greaser in that. So it was like kind of the warm-up to the, and one of the other members of the gang was Stallone. So it's this,
nice.
You know, seminal movie for these careers. But your dad should give it a look because the Fonz sort of rougher and, you know, streetier than the Fonz. But he's a New Yorker, so, you know, there was plenty to chat about the neighborhoods. And then I went back and wrote it as Kermit, you know, which is kind of direct and maybe a little jokey, but that wasn't as sort of loud and vivid a voice to write it as Miss Piggy. That is, you really had to bring that character. So I don't know, on eBay, maybe there's some Muppet magazines. I probably have set in the garage from those days.
So after Muppet Magazine, then you went into Sesame Street, and
yeah, but not directly. That was an odd zigzag to Sesame Street. How I got to Sesame Street was there was a review.
I was just about to say, can you tell me how you got to Sesame Street?
Yeah, it was through a very circuitous path, and I didn't have GPS back then, so it was. There was a review, a musical comedy called "Hey, My Name Is Alice," and that's really one of the things I really wanted to do. I wanted to do musicals, and I was lucky enough to get some of my material selected for that review, and it was 5 actresses, and one of them was Elena Reed, who was Olivia on Sesame Street.
You're right. And for any of the listeners who don't know the character Olivia, because if you're my age, you definitely won't know who Olivia is. But Olivia was some of my friends might remember Gordon, who was a
Yeah.
bald guy with a mustache. That's the best way I describe him to my friends, is the bald guy with a mustache.
Yeah.
And Olivia was a character who was Gordon's sister, and
Yeah.
and had an occupation as a photographer. And Elena Reed was also a very, very beautiful singer as well. Like to all you listeners out there who have never seen Olivia on Sesame Street, look up One Little Star from the movie Follow That Bird, and I swear to God, you will be blown away.
Yeah. Yeah. She was that, and she had when she left Sesame Street, she had a sitcom called 227. And
Oh
she was
yeah,
one of
that's
the
right.
three
She was
core
on that
leads.
show.
Yeah, that's sort of how she became a national institution, was through that show.
Mhm.
And she was
And
kind
so,
of
and some of my friends also might remember her from The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, because we were in that age range of watching that
yeah.
show. I
Oh,
don't
she was on
remember.
that?
Yeah, I don't remember how often. I don't remember what character, but I think I saw her once on that show, but I never connected it to being Olivia from Sesame Street
Oh, yeah,
until I was a little bit older.
yeah, yeah. Um, so she had this career, rest her soul now. And she she did everything in New York. I mean, she was kind of already noteworthy. She had a legendary cabaret act, because she was kind of the racial lines were drawn, is the white women were doing the cabaret, and the black women are doing soul singing and rhythm blues. Elena inhabited every world, and her cabaret act, which was kind of pioneering, was legendary. And she was Miss Elena Reed. She was in the best clubs in New York, and she was just, the way she ran the shop was, she was just going to do everything, unstoppable, be in everything. And she was in My Name Is Alice, and we bonded really fast. I mean, I was writing stuff for her, and she kind of, people bowed to her expertise. She said she wanted to do it, it got in. And kind of at the end of that run, she basically, shoved me into a gunny sack and, carried me up and dumped me in an office at Sesame Street and said,
I did not know that she was a kidnapper.
yeah, yeah, in the very best way, and changed my life, really, this one woman.
Wow.
And next thing, I was in the Sesame Street cradle, and with all these wonderful people and writers and kindred spirits, and it went on for 11 years. But it was really because of Elena that I got in there and even got to audition, and I tried to always do right by her with material. I knew what she was expecting, and that only happens at Birdland. That was a song I wrote for her specifically.
Right. Yeah.
And some other thing I can't remember right now, but I was always expressing my gratitude that she did that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a cool little tune. Actually, I did mean to ask you about the Sesame Street version of Birdland.
Yeah.
I think you wrote the first script for it. Did you create Birdland?
I did,
Okay.
and I wasn't sure I'd get away with it.
Yeah, because I know the episode where I haven't actually watched it, but I'm familiar with it, where Telly was. The episode starts with Telly dressed as a bird, and Gordon and Susan are like, "Why are you dressed as a bird?" And Telly's like, "Because I'm going to Hoots' Club Birdland." They're like, "No. You don't have to be a bird to go. I mean, birds are allowed in, but you don't have to be one." And of course, it had that awesome song by Joe Williams.
Yes, that's right. He was in the first one, right?
Mhm.
Right. He was in the first Birdland.
Yeah, he was the one doing the Birdland jump.
And Hoots already existed. I didn't. Like, there was an owl who played jazz, and I liked jazz even then. And I guess I couldn't believe no one had thought of Birdland. If you have an owl playing jazz, where's he going to play?
Yeah, that's clever.
But this is like way back nostalgia. But we know there was a Birdland, right?
Yep.
There was a real Birdland. Yeah. Okay. And there still is. I think they revived it as a nightclub.
Yeah, like when I was making the Q&A for this, I was like, okay, how do I ask about Birdland? And I was like, okay, I'm writing here, did you create Birdland? And my grandfather's like, no, Birdland's been around a long time. And I'm like, not the actual Birdland. There was a Sesame Street edition of Birdland, which was really clever.
Still, go grandpa for knowing that. Is he a jazz fan?
We listen to a lot of swing in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
car.
yeah.
Like sometimes it depends on what he's in the mood for. Like swing music, a lot of. He introduced me to the Andrews sisters, actually.
Oh, yes. Well, that's important to be introduced to the Andrews sisters.
Yeah.
Now move on to the Boswells. The
Yeah.
Boswell sisters. Yeah. Yeah. They pre-existed the Andrews sisters. They took a lot from the Boswells, and they're much craftier musicians.
Oh, wow.
More ornate three-part singing. Yeah, it'll knock you out. Play it for Grandpa if he doesn't know that. It's right up his alley. Yeah.
Wow.
And then
He
there's the
probably knows about them.
He might. Yeah, he might. They're from 20s and 30s, and the Andrews sisters are kind of 40s and 50s, and you know. And then the Oinker sisters were 80s.
Did you create the Oinker sisters as well?
I did.
Okay.
That was a parody of the Pointer sisters, who were popular at that time.
And they had that Cyndi Lauper kind of hairdo.
Yes, I didn't create the hairdo. I just singing pigs is kind of all I think I wrote in the script. And then there were the Oinkers. And that was New Way to Walk. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that was one of my favorites when I was a kid. I've got a new way to walk. Oh man, this is taking me back all over the place.
And that was Joe Raposo, the music. And I wish he was around to be interviewed. I really miss him. But that was one of the sort of deepest relationships I had with the Sesame Street people, with Joe Raposo. And then he left us far too soon. But the things we were planning to do, it was just a real kind of hand in glove relationship. I felt so accepted when he started, asking me for something, for lyrics. Like, it doesn't get greater. It's still a remarkable talent that he had, and if he hadn't died so young, there'd be so much more. Because you think of It's Not Easy Being Green, and at first you think, how could a sophisticated melody like that, how could that ever work on a children's show? You just think about the tune, and it's jazz, but it has this feeling that it's being improvised, like it's being made up by the singer. Like they're kind of groping around for the next note, and it's an unlikely note, and they're getting some right and some wrong, but it's so spontaneous and alive. And I don't know, like, who does that kind, jazz saxophonists do that trick, and Joe did it. And even a Sesame Street theme, if you think about what children's TV music was at that time, which was basically, music boxes, little tinkle
That's
things.
accurate. Yeah. I mean, the theme that was the theme to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which was not a Joe Raposo one, but there you go with music boxes.
That was pretty much it, or a march, Mickey Mouse Club or something like that. And here comes Joe with this jazz blues harmonica thing. It's going to be a children's show. How can that be? And it's the very essence of Sesame Street. When I first saw Avenue Q, which I'm sure you see.
I haven't actually.
Oh, have you heard it?
Oh yeah. Okay. I know a couple of people who were involved in it.
Okay, so it was an odd thing with Avenue Q because my cousin works in New York Theater, and she saw an early preview, and she said, "You have to come see this. I'm not telling you anything. You just have to come see it, okay? Because it hadn't been publicized yet, And I said, "Okay, I take your word for it." And I was so knocked out. But the first thing when I realized, I'm in for a Sesame Street parody, when I heard the chords, and I went, "Oh, those are Raposo chords." They lovingly found like Joe's jazz chords. Yeah. And and then part of me, like, I'm the one who sat with tears in my eyes at Avenue Q, because I was thinking of Joe, and one of his dreams was having a Broadway musical, and he got close with I say a hit Broadway musical. He got close with Raggedy Ann starring Ivy Austin.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Ivy mentioned that very briefly when I spoke with her.
Yeah, I don't think Joe dwelled on it either. It was touring really well, and then these things happen. You open in New York and you get killed, and that's the end of the show, and but it's a good score, and it's got this kind of ragtimey feel to it, and I think there's a recording. I've heard it somewhere. I don't know, maybe it was a private recording, but that was the beginning of Joe's musical theater career, which would have gone on and on, and Avenue Q to me is like, Joe got his musical. I know it's Lopez and Mark's, but it was done with such affection for Joe, that they really wanted to kind of capture that jazzy Sesame Street sound, that it was kind of touching. Some other writers loved him as much as I did.
Speaking of some of your closest collaborators from Sesame Street when it comes to music, around the beginning of this year, end of last year, one of Sesame Street's biggest somewhat biggest anyway, but somebody who wrote a lot of songs for Sesame Street, some with you, passed on, unfortunately, Stephen Lawrence.
Oh, Stephen, yeah. We were pretty close. See, he and I'm trying to think what the first thing is, because that A My Name Is Alice show I mentioned, we wrote songs together for that, and I'm trying to think of, I think we wrote songs for A My Name Is Alice. He was already at Sesame Street, so when I landed at Sesame Street, I was still writing with Stephen, and Oh How I Miss My Ex with Stevens, and Take the Hand of Someone You Love, that was Stevens.
Yeah, as was Island of Emotion, which I mentioned.
Yes.
And the I think the Alpha Quest theme.
Yes, you're right.
Was Alpha Quest also your creation?
They had it worked out, and they just needed a theme song, and they knew it was a running thing, and you're always happy when you're doing one of these repeated songs on Sesame Street, because that's the residuals every time it's played. So Alpha Quest was a great one for that. It was so short, it was like maybe 30 seconds.
You guys just had to work together very quickly to come up with something very quick.
It was, and we were both fast, which helped, and Joe was too. I think the thing is, to do TV, you have to be a fast writer, whatever part. If you're writing script or song or something, you think it's Saturday Night Live, you have to start writing on Monday and tape on Friday, sitcoms, It's just, there are people with great talent, but don't have exactly that skill of writing fast and, on your feet, literally. You're standing in the studio and, well, this isn't working, what else? You can't go up to your cabinet and give it a thought for the weekend, you have to do it right there. So it's kind of weeding out that, it's one of the things that when I'm working in theater, people can be surprised, like, oh, you came up with that. So I work in television, like there is in theater, there seems to be this kind of option, like I'll do it now in rehearsal, I'll do it tomorrow, or maybe I'll do it next week.
Procrastination.
But there's just no room for that. There's especially if you're taping, the cameras are there, everybody's waiting, the actor is standing there and waiting for the rewrite. You sort of do it or leave, I guess. And so it's a good skill to learn. It's always held me in good stead, whatever I'm working on. The idea that I can sometimes in Hollywood, you don't want to let it be known you're that fast.
Yeah, because you never know who's going to be seeing it.
Well, sometimes you just like to give, if you show that you're that fast, they'll always want it that fast. So you kind of have to hold back a little bit sometimes. That's the one pro tip I'll give to the writers listening here.
You mentioned Ivy just moments ago,
Yeah.
and talking about Ivy, I was wondering if you had any memories of Danny Epstein.
Yeah, of course. That's Ivy's dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of the time, because Ivy and I are still very, very, very close friends, and
Oh,
when I tell that to people at Sesame Street, I always get a lot of, "Oh my God, that's Danny Epstein's daughter," and because of
yeah,
that, a
yeah.
lot of past guests have talked about Danny on this show.
Um, I, all the music stuff had to go through Danny. He was supervising everything, and
Mhm.
and I there was also Dave. I can't think of his last name. Who was sort of
Connor.
yeah, Dave Connor. Yeah. I thought I think I worked more closely with Dave because he was kind of doing the arrangements, the sort of note by note stuff,
Yeah.
and Danny was kind of a little above that. It was more just what you're saying that I felt I knew Ivy more, and that's Ivy's dad. And I don't really have any vivid. Oh, I remember him trying with Caribbean Amphibian. Well, what rhythm is this? Yeah, I remember, and then you went to Danny because that was like going to the Supreme Court. Is this rumba? Is this reggae? Is this, like somehow we had to nail it down. And I think he was the one who said calypso, which I just mentioned earlier. See, so it stuck. So
So it worked, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Ivy actually told me that one of her very favorite things that she's ever done for Sesame Street is a song that you and Steven wrote, "The Sublime Miss M."
Oh, right, right. Yes, that was when I was subtly embedding gay material into Sesame Street. That and Miss M was one. And
Yeah, I'm not judging.
oh, okay. Well, I got away with so much, but I was really happy that Miss M. They were trying to get her on, I think, and it didn't. That didn't work out, but I, of course, was such a fan,
Mhm.
from early on, and uh, and yeah, so missing. I forgot that was Ivy. This is so great today to have these memories come back. But
I'll,
yeah,
I'll
she
I'll I'll tell her hi for you.
yeah she killed with that. As far as nailing that. It was
Hmm.
and cut to maybe 15 years later, I was working on a project at Vet's company, and Bonnie Bruckheimer, maybe that was her manager and producer, and uh, and I brought in that videotape, and they were knocked out, and I said, this is my love for that. I'm so happy to be working on this. The film never got made, but I'm still just happy to be in this orbit, and and when Vet would be on the phone for a meeting, and she was in New York, well, did you like it? Knowing she did, knowing that she did already, and yes, she loved the Sublime and Sam, and being part of the whole Sesame Street experience. So
That's
yes,
cool.
uh, that was a goodie.
Hmm. Do you remember the very first ever thing for Sesame Street that you ever wrote? Because I know that a lot of the time how it used to work. I don't know if it still does, but I know that how it used to work was that you'd submit like 6 or 7 audition pieces.
I was kind of on a fast track because of
Okay.
Elena, and
Wow.
and uh, I remember an audition for Norman Stiles, and it's funny because the talent they really were looking for, and maybe still do, is sketch writing. Not writing for kids, because you can learn that as a writer. Well, what's my demographic? Who's your audience? Is the first question anyway. But sketch writing, which was kind of already an antiquated skill. There wasn't that much of it in TV since what, the 60s, Carol Burnett, I mean, Saturday Night Live, yes. But as far as mainstream TV, when I was growing up, I mean, it was full of variety shows and sketch writers. And, Simon and Mel Brooks were writing sketches for shows. Um, so I think the fact that I wrote sketches for this review made me a candidate more than writing for Muppet Magazine in a weird way, because that's if you think of the entire industry as very genre specific. If you write TV, you write TV. If you write features, you write features. You sort of, and the business has a way of keeping you in your little track. So that sketch writing at My Name is Al's, this sketch writing just came easy to me, and I think that's what made them, and it was a hit review, and the audience was actually laughing. So if people went to Scout, they would have seen my sketches were effective. And I was writing with Stephen Lawrence, so I was already collaborating with one of their composers. So I was very lucky, that I didn't go through endless auditions. I had Stephen in my camp, and Elena, whose opinion really mattered. And I think I can't remember what I wrote, but I think I got it on one bounce, one audition, and I got in there because of the people that I was already working with. But yeah, I know that can be grueling, and that I think is guild control too. I think there's a. I'm trying to think if I got paid for those auditions. I almost think I did. That
because I remember Joey Mazzarino had said before that when he was invited to be a writer, he was like, "Oh God, no, I'm a terrible writer." And Lisa Simon said, "Oh, we pay for the audition," and he's like, "Oh, sign me up."
Yeah. I just, I love my Sesame Street people. I also love my union. So I just have to plug that. Yeah. Part of that wasn't beneficence. The union would insist on that if you hire somebody, you pay for the audition. I'm pretty sure I'm correct about that. But that was, I can't remember what I wrote, and it was probably the most important, writing of my life at that point. And I can't remember what my audition was. I guess it was funny because, like I said, everything I wrote was funny since high school. And I of course knew their humor and Muppet humor, so I probably wrote about Muppet things. And to answer your other question, I can't think of the first time I had something taped would have been a gigantic event in my life. But the other thing, just to understand about that point in history, I came in there in the early 80s, mid 80s, and AIDS was raging in the city. So my memories of Sesame Street are kind of intertwined with the funerals at the time. So it was, I was happy to have this place of, this happy place that I could go to with this new family and all that. But right outside the door was the horror show of New York in the 80s. And it was, so some of this stuff just got lost when I go back to that time. Oh yeah, who died that year? As points of references to maybe I can get in there, but it's all tied together, and that's kind of it's hard for me to go back to that time, starting in Sesame Street and think, oh, it was such a happy, joyous time. It was career-wise in my life, it was, but I can't peel away the other memories of that time.
Right. One of your major contributions to Sesame Street actually is the creator of Placido Flamingo.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with Placido?
Well, here's some more, sneaking in the opera queen into Sesame Street, and Pink. Yeah. I guess there's some John Waters homage going on there too with the Pink Flamingo. That just occurred to me. It's subconscious.
He'd get along. Then Placido would definitely get along well with Christopher Cross because of his album covers, the Pink Flamingo.
Yes, right. Yeah. That's the connect. Christopher Cross, John Waters, and Placido Flamingo all together in Birdland.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah,
Christopher
yeah.
Cross performing at Birdland.
Yeah,
I could
yeah.
just picture, because Sailing is such a jazzy kind of a song, and so is like Never Be the Same. That would be so
Well, it was
cool.
Moon in New York City it was jazzy. His persona wasn't, but the music was very sophisticated of Chris Cross. And yeah, so the Sesame Street offices are right across the street from the Metropolitan Opera, and it there would be moments when I be done early in the office and, oh, look, there's a matinee today, and charge over. So, I gotten more jazz into Sesame Street, more show tunes, like these are the places that Chris was sort of in charge of the rock and roll, of the sort of roots rock and roll, Chris Surf. And nobody had done opera. And I thought, well, write what you know and love, and how can I do an opera character? And the name puns were kind of easy for me, and getting to do opera parody. Whenever he appeared, usually there was a parody of the Toreador song or something like that he would sing. And it was Richard Hunt, and you didn't have to.
You were earlier talking about the AIDS epidemic, and sadly, Richard Hunt passed away
Richard
from
was
AIDS.
one of our casualties. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm talking about, like, there were two worlds. The one was the Sesame Street world was affected. I mean, one of our best, and I mean, really, that kind of tears in my heart thinking about him, because he was, he's exactly my age, and he'd be here talking to you. It's heartbreaking, but he didn't have to be told to go over the top with Placido Flamingo.
Yeah, he would just do it.
It just was. I think it was as unleashed Richard, like Volcano Richard, as much as any of his characters. It was, he just could not go too far with Placido, and it was. So yeah, that I thought maybe there's a lot of kids, at least they'd hear opera in their ears, that it wouldn't be alien to them later in life if they heard that was like on Sesame Street. I heard opera. It's not scary, and so that one made me feel good. And then the day came when the other Placido, as we called him.
Yeah, on the 20th anniversary special,
Yes,
where they did a duet together.
Yes, that was true. And I was looking. I thought, okay, he wouldn't be here if he was insulted, because one of the attributes of Placido Flamingo was his ego, which is kind of a stereotype of an opera tenor that they don't like, and yet he showed up, so I guess he was cool with it.
That's funny.
Beside myself, that Placido Domingo was coming here singing with my character.
My favorite Sesame Street episode that you have ever written actually involves Placido very, very heavily. And it's the one where he falls in love with Maria before she gets married to Luis.
Did I write that?
Well, you're credited for it, but
Okay,
anyway,
yeah.
what happens is Luis is going out to get a sandwich, and he's like, "Okay, see you later, honey." And Placido's like, "That is the man who loves you." That's the best Placido voice I can do. "That is the man who loves you, and that is how he says goodbye. See you later, honey." And then he starts singing opera to Maria, like, "I must go, my love," or something like that. And then he's serenading Maria. This was, of course, before the movie Say Anything, so he didn't have a boombox. He's just serenading Maria with a love song. Maria, it's like got to be 3 o'clock in the morning, and David Rudman is doing a voice going, "Shut up!" So, like, clearly just pissed off that he's being woken up. It's like, it's 3 in the morning, knock it off. And so Maria comes down to talk to Placido, and the amazing Mumford comes down to help. And brings his duck. And there was an episode prior to this where Mumford accidentally made Maria quack like a duck, and every time Mumford and Maria are every
right.
time that they're in a room together, ever since then, Maria's like, Mumford, please don't help me, because every time you try to help out, I end up quacking like a duck. And so what Mumford does is reverses voices. So Placido's like, now I can have Maria, and Luis, you can have the duck.
You do that very well.
Thank you. I don't think I can do it as good as Richard.
Yeah. It came from the heart with Richard, from his feathered heart.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Luis, by the way, as I'm sure you've heard, as many Sesame Street people have, earlier this year we lost one of my very favorite people that I've ever talked to from Sesame Street, the very kind Emilio Delgado. Yeah. Oh God, that was heartbreaking for me, because he was somebody, even though I never had him on this podcast, he was somebody from Sesame Street that I felt a real good connection with. And I was away, actually, when I heard. I was in Vancouver, and I'm just walking around the city, and I was like, I think I was answering a text from a friend or something, and I was like, I'll just wait for them to reply, and then I'll just go right to social media. And I see a post that Emilio Delgado died, and I was like, this has got to be an internet rumor. And then I'm seeing more and more posts, and I looked at my mom, and I was like, Mom, I got to go sit down. And I was going out to dinner that night, so I got to go out to dinner all sad. So it was, I immediately got a hold of a couple of people from Sesame Street I know, Chris and Lou and Norman, Joe Matthew, Molly Boylan, and I was like, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Emilio Delgado passed away. And I said to Norman, he was one of my favorite people, and Norman's like, I can see why. Did you get to know Emilio very well?
I wouldn't say very well.
Okay.
I'm trying to think it was really other writers and composers that I bonded the deepest with. I mean, it wasn't that I was standoffish or anybody was remote in any way. It's just, that's where you spend more time, in the writer's room rather than, during videotaping. So every, parties and things like that, but I don't remember, nothing bad, but it just wasn't the way it fell for me with my deepest friends in Sesame Street. Were more, Judy and Stephen and Joe Raposa. I mean, that's just where my time was spent, was in writers' rooms and consequently hanging out with them. And then the producers you mentioned too. So, so Elena, because of our history, was the closest performer to me of Muppeteers or flesh performers. It was really Elena and the writers and composers.
Okay. I mentioned the Amazing Mumford earlier, which makes me wonder. Recently was Jerry Nelson's birthday. And I actually posted a little video on this page of, there was a tribute to Jerry. It was a bunch of past guests kind of talking about Jerry. There was Marty Robinson and Lou.
Where do I see that?
I can send you the link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
But it was memories from Marty Robinson and Lou and Leslie Carrara Rudolph, who plays Abby Cadabby, and Billy Barkhurst, who played Ernie after Steve did. So with Jerry's birthday having recently passed, did you get to know Jerry very well?
Same thing. Okay. Also, a lot of our Muppeteers were off doing Muppet Show and Muppet movies. And Jerry and Richard were kind of the core group.
They were the in and out performers.
Along with Jim and Frank. I mean, one of the reasons that Caribbean Amphibian experience is so vivid is because it was rare that that I'd be right there with Jim or Frank, and sometimes I was still writing when I moved to LA. I was in those days faxing in my scripts, so I was pretty much long distance also.
Did you ever have a favorite character to write before, besides ones that you created?
Yes, I liked Snuffy. I liked Telly.
Telly seems to be the big popular one with a lot of the writers.
because he was us, because he was an agonizer, and he had, like with Cookie Monster, like the particular disorder was so vivid. Well, he's obsessive about cookies, end of story.
And Telly's just obsessive, period.
Yeah, well, it's nebulous. You're not sure what will set him off, or what, like what's a trigger for Telly. It seems like what he walks around. So I think we could all pour ourselves into for Telly. That if any of the Muppets went off to be writers, it would be Telly. Like he's going to sit in a room and agonize, and Snuffy seemed. He also seemed a little like Eeyore, that he was,
that's what Jerry Nelson had said. That's how it was described to him.
And again, it was not caused by anything. He had a perfectly nice life when it's and
but the voice was very Eeyore-like. Like it was like oh dear.
Yes. It was this kind of born with this suffering, just existence. Weltschmerz, there's a German word, of course, a German word for this, that is just a world sorrow. It's just an unshakable sorrow. And some people just have that. And Snuffy, my soulmate, had Weltschmerz. So it was, there was something pain, and especially in opposition to Big Bird, who I never could connect with.
I've heard that quite a few times from some of the writers.
I mean, he was so necessary to have that child's point of view, but he was so good and wholesome, and really, it was a very narrow. The possibilities of Big Bird, what he could do, I don't mean physically in that puppet suit, but it was just, like kind of from A, using Sesame Street letters, you could kind of go from A to maybe D or E with Big Bird. You think about Mr. Hooper Death, but that was like once, that he like had a real emotional kind of show. The rest, he was, chirpy and chipper, and unlike any writer you've spoken to, I'm sure.
Have you seen the documentary I Am Big Bird?
Oh yes, I have seen that one. Yeah. That's how many years ago now?
That came out. I remember when it was like publicly out. I was in high school at the time. I think I was in like grade 10 or 11, so that would have been like 2015, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember my dad had rented it, and I didn't have school the next 2 days, so he's like, "You want to watch it?" I went, "Sure." I swear to God, I was in tears.
Oh yeah.
It was a very heart-wrenching kind of a story.
Right. Yeah. And there's a few documentaries that getting off of mine, but another children's show I worked on before Sesame Street. Now that I think it was Reading Rainbow, which is
right. Yes.
Yeah, and there's a documentary about to appear. It's just shown in New York, and it's about to drop. I'm not sure how they're releasing it, but of course, LeVar is a character in it. I haven't seen it yet because I left New York before they screened it. But look for that.
Okay. Yeah, I used to watch Reading Rainbow quite a bit here and there. I am pretty impressed with LeVar as a recurring host of Jeopardy, though.
Yes. Those of us, on Team LeVar were really pulling hard to have him land this.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was, people like you were kids, and LeVar was like your intellectual friend.
Yeah, very much. He was like Mr. Rogers, kind of.
Yeah, and that translates in adulthood to the host of Jeopardy who knows everything. So I don't know. I wish we'd come back to him, but I think the ship has sailed as far as LeVar. I think they're on 2 other people, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was her name? She was on The Big Bang Theory and Blossom. I can never pronounce her name.
Mayim Bialik.
Thank you. I love both of those shows, but I have such a hard time pronouncing her name. But she's pretty good too.
Yeah, she was holding up, and yes, my first, again, another TV show, but my first month, I moved out here in 1990 with my partner, and within weeks I was on Jeopardy. I mean, I'd auditioned, and
That's cool.
and then I got the word that I was going to be on. I left work, and it was over in one show, but still, I got to, okay, Final Jeopardy question. Southernmost independent country in the world.
You asking me?
Yes.
Okay. Southernmost independent country in the world. Can I have a hint?
It's in South America.
Okay. Chile?
Yes.
Okay, I actually did not know that.
Yeah.
I until you said South America, I literally was going to guess Singapore. As I said, I have a best friend who lives overseas. She was born and raised there, and she always talks about how hot it is. I remember one time in my global geo class when I was in grade 12, we had to do a whole project on Singapore, and I got a hold of her. I was like, Sean, I need your help. I'm doing a project, and I don't remember what my mark was on it, but it was enough to not get me expelled for cheating.
Yeah. I mean, that's research. That's not cheating.
Somewhat, yeah.
I said Argentina. In my head, I was going Chile, Argentina.
Okay, yeah. I just kind of guessed. So okay.
You guessed right.
Okay, wow. Maybe I could win on Jeopardy one of these days.
Well, you should try. You seem to have the kind of mind for it. You just
I would lose. Oh God, I would lose.
You know, a lot of the technique is just getting the buzzer right.
Well, actually, one of the latest big contestants from Jeopardy was actually from Nova Scotia. So,
well, then there's your coach. You find them online and just, would you help? But anybody who's on realizes that, and I learned it, on my feet. But it's they open the circuit when the host is done with the question, and you can't wait or you'll be late. So you have to kind of anticipate, it was Alex Trebek that, he's one syllable away from the end, and you have to start clicking, because the real competition is being first on your clicker, and to click at exactly the same time, they cut each other out. So that's where the technique is, and the gamesmanship, I found out. But yeah, I even got opera as a category.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and,
right up your alley then.
Yeah, and they told us, they interviewed us, and where you work and what do you do and all that, and they said, don't say your company's name when Alex is interviewing you. Don't say any brands, any recognizable anything. Don't plug. And I said okay, and then when it was my turn to be interviewed, and what do you do? I said, I write television in New York. And he said, yes, you write for Sesame Street. I hear you. And I kind of glanced to the producers. Is this okay? And and then went into it. So yeah, I managed to get a plug in there, but he led the way. He wanted this guy said Sesame Street, like everybody does, and still I did win second place.
Okay.
Just one of those things, and I never forget my Final Jeopardy answer. That's like will haunt me till I die. And you just made it worse.
Oh God.
By saying Chile so quickly. I thought, if only 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I would have been as good as James and said Chile. I'd still be playing.
So, do you have any celebrity stories from doing Sesame Street?
Yeah, I remember one. This was an early one. It wasn't Birdland, but this was one of the things, like, you could sort of get anybody, and you could approach any celebrity and they would show up for us. And right away I was doing jazz stuff. I mean, Hoots was there, and I, wrote a jazz thing, and jazz trumpeter. I just put in jazz trumpeter shows up, and and once it goes through casting, it's Dizzy Gillespie. It's going to be Dizzy Gillespie in person, and I'm breathless. And it just happened. So I, of course, was going to be in the studio that day. It's a legend, and that was one of the times I was really intimidated too, because this is one of the greatest of the greats, and and he was not comfortable reading lines. He was a cool jazz guy, and that was fine. I like trimmed it down to whatever, and then he was playing, and there were a lot of kids watching him. Have you ever seen him? Because he makes his cheeks huge.
Yeah, I've seen him do that.
So the kids were like, they had never seen anything like that, and they were just staring and watching his every move. And then he had to empty his spit valve, as trumpeters do.
Yeah.
And he didn't go up to do it. He just did it right there for the next day. And the kids are now like absolutely mesmerized watching spit come out. And one of the kids said, "What's that?" Pointing to it. Anyway, that's jazz.
What a great answer.
So I've lived with that, and that was, I think, the one complete line that he said the whole time was that. But there were oh geez, they came and went. Patti LaBelle with New Way to Walk. That one haunts me because it was the one time.
Wait, she did I've Got a New Way to Walk?
No, Miss My Ex. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I thought
My
so.
Ex,
Yeah.
And the other walk song, Take the Hand of
Take the Hand of Someone You Love. Yeah. Well,
So,
how I Miss My Ex might be one of my very favorites. I
love that. That was, rock video era. So we're starting to write the songs as rock videos with cutaways, and that was one of the, I think that was one of the first, if you remember, then she's out at dinner with the ex, and she's in a rowboat with the ex. I mean, that was really produced. They had to go out.
Yeah, I remember that from when I was a kid.
Yeah, it was a good one. And but I remember with Patti LaBelle because it was so exciting to have her there. It was the one time in my TV career, and I ran in front of a camera. While it was live. I mean, it was, and they had to stop, and everybody knew it was me. And my only excuse was that, like, I'm not myself. Patti LaBelle is in the room. I don't know who I am. I'm busy.
Well, I don't know if you saw the 50th anniversary special that they did for Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Patti LaBelle was in this crowd shot, and there was a Muppet letter X right next to her.
Oh, great. That makes me so happy, because I thought that one was like had fallen out, like only the true scholars knew about, like yourself. But I'm really glad to hear that. It makes my day.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the Jim Henson Hour. Do you have any celebrity stories from that?
Let's see. Did we the stories, that was Toronto. When I said I've been to Toronto,
Right. Yeah. I had a feeling that's what you were talking about.
And it was winter, and people had a lot of colds. Now it seems like nothing, post COVID. But what were we crabbing about?
Yeah, I kind of get that, because like I feel like now at this point it's like anybody who hasn't gotten COVID yet is more likely to get it now, but it's really just a way of the virus saying, okay, let's get this over with. I just got it 2 months ago, so yeah.
How'd you do?
I definitely I felt like having a cold, but there's ways that you can have a cold that are worse than others.
Yeah.
And I had another one of those virtual meet and greets that week, so it was a good thing I didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's what I'm kind of hearing, like people's cases are really mild, and mine was.
Oh, you had it too.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was a cold. Yeah.
Mhm.
I really wouldn't have known. I just happened to have a checkup scheduled, and oh well, we'll give you the COVID test. And what a surprise! If I hadn't gone to the doctor, I wouldn't have even known. It would just
Damn.
been another cold or allergy.
Mhm.
So some of us are lucky
Yeah.
when we get away with it that way. But
Mhm.
that was, yeah, I think the New Yorkers exposed to Canadian weather. We all came down with something then.
Mhm.
But that was, uh, I think, when I think about that show, there's not so much production. It was, again, like the Muppets on prime time. Why don't they stick? Why didn't that show happen? It's more like I just think about the disappointment that would have been such a cool show to have on for, many seasons.
Yeah,
And
it really was an interesting show because like it definitely was the Muppet Show kind
Yeah.
of, but they were also somewhat acknowledging their creator,
yeah, and
calling it the Jim Henson Hour. Yeah.
right, that was like and Jim introducing it,
Yeah.
like the way Walt Disney did it.
Mhm.
That was all solid, and then having these sort of freestanding half hour, it was an hour of Muppet hijinks and then a mini movie. Yeah, I mean, maybe it was just too progressive, it was too weird a format for network television. But yeah, it was sad that didn't just keep churning out. It's also kind of, was that the last project of Jim's that actually,
It was one of them, yeah.
yeah, because that's also, it's kind of tied up with, if I think, well, the last time I saw Jim or talked to him would have been that show. And so maybe I can't get the chronology right, but it can't be more than 2 years between that show and Jim's death.
That show was in like 88, 89, and then Jim
Okay.
died in 1990.
Yeah,
So
so it was close,
yeah.
I moved out here in 1990, and that, so yeah, the last time I didn't know it would be the last time I saw him, but it had to be on that show. So that's also wrapped up in a little melancholy.
Mhm.
The production in Toronto, other than the cold and the winter,
Yeah.
that was a great experience. Working with the Canadians and having kind of access to the whole, like everybody knew we were there and we were Muppet people, and just opened their hearts to us. So I have those really good memories of that. Just I wish the show had gone.
Hmm. Yeah. Let's wrap it up by talking about a project not Muppet related.
Sure.
I do want to talk a little bit about the film Mrs. Santa Claus
Oh,
because
sure.
that was a Hallmark Christmas movie, and believe it or not, Hallmark Christmas movies are actually what inspired me to want to be a writer. Well,
Oh,
somewhat. I remember around Christmas time 2015 when I was in high school because I liked high school, but I didn't always have the. I don't want to say I didn't always have the best of experiences there. I got bullied a lot in high school,
oh,
and so
sorry to
I
hear
would
that.
kind of thank you. I would kind of emulate that into. I actually kind of wrote my first original thing when I realized I wanted to be a writer. Like based it a little bit off of the bullying and the anxieties that I had at the time, and it was close to Christmas. I was close to graduating high school and was getting nervous, and my mom was watching Hallmark Christmas movies, and I'm like,
Oh,
these are really really good, and these have a really good story to them. I actually wrote what I think would be a good Hallmark Christmas movie.
yeah.
So those have definitely made a big difference in my life, and of course. You wrote one of them, Mrs. Santa Claus. What was
Yeah.
that like? And because you got to work with some pretty famous people on
Yeah,
that too.
that was a career peak, and it was that started with Broadway Video,
Mhm.
Lorne Michaels, and Jerry Herman had gone to them and said, that he wanted to do musical for TV. He thought Broadway and he had parted ways. You know, the rock musical was in and he was out, but he still wanted to keep working, and he thought a TV musical, the way Rodgers and Hammerstein did with Cinderella, you know, and I had a friend at Broadway Video that said, "When should I have lunch with Jerry? Oh, lunch with Jerry Herman? Well, of course, you know." And I had that idea of Mrs. Santa Claus because I kind of knew it would be Hallmark, so it should be Christmassy. And then I thought,
Good choice.
yeah, well, yeah, you know, I mean, it was almost like being backed into the idea, and I thought, oh, one of Jerry's divas is a TV star right now, you know, is Angela Lansbury, and she was at the peak of Murder, She Wrote. And it just was, well, if it's Angela Lansbury and a Christmas special, who would she be? Oh, well, she'd be Mrs. Santa Claus, you know, I mean, where else? She's not gonna be an elf, you know, and
No, that credit would go to Michael Jeter,
Michael Jeter, yeah.
who also ended up on Sesame Street. He was
yes, Mr. Noodle.
or one of the many Mr. Noodles.
Yeah, it's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle.
Yeah, that always confused me as a kid because, like, to me, it was just Mr. Noodle. Like, the way I envisioned it when I was a kid is Mr. Noodle with hair, Mr. Noodle without hair.
Yes,
so Elmo would just, no offense, Kevin. I've met Kevin before. No offense, Kevin. But when he would say, it's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, right now, I'd probably be like, who the hell is Mr. Noodle at this point?
Yes, that was that was Cheater who could do anything, you know, and inevitably he'd show up at Sesame Street. I mean, he's a dancer, he's a singer, he's, you know, do all these characters, and he's an elf on Mrs. Santa Claus. So,
Yeah.
And then it was it was kind of Jerry and Angela like bringing their history, and they had one like extremely huge hit together was Made, and then they had a kind of, you know, sputtery Dear World was another one, and they were it wasn't like they were coming in sort of with baggage, and some of it was very positive and some of it wasn't, and it was kind of sorting that out, and I'm just the scriptwriter here, you know, but kind of keeping it all positive, that this is going to be great. Angela had really shown her singing skills to America. You know, she was like a major TV star, and but you know, she was a Broadway singer, and she didn't do the movie of Mame, and so people didn't know this side of her. And I think there was a little anxiety there about, you know, how that, it's completely understandable. But and also, you know what happened? Like, you play the same character for a long time on TV and you get a little rusty doing new characters. And that was really interesting to see a talent like her, a supreme actress, have to sort of put away Jessica Fletcher and start with a new character, you know, and kind of the self-control and self-awareness of that you know, that no, this isn't Jessica Fletcher, you know, that even though we did a little tip of the hat to Jessica Fletcher in one scene, but she really came up with a character that you could see how kind of, you know, saccharine sweet this kind of thing could turn into in somebody else's hands who just would play it all twinkly and cuddly. And she put like real starch and steel into this character, and watching that occur, and then watching Jerry, you know, like, I'm going to be the first person in the world to hear a Jerry Herman song, you know, it's kind of it made my heart flip. And he I think it was the last thing he did. And I think there was one other thing, a musical that didn't get produced in Las Vegas, but his last completely realized project was Mrs. Santa Claus, and we may see it on stage soon.
Oh,
yes, I can say that much. You know,
Wow.
it's becoming, I mean, it's been talked about since that movie aired, but there's been a reality leap, and it could very well be Christmas 2023. We'll see it somewhere on stage. So yeah,
Okay.
I've been looking forward to that for decades.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do about coming to the States around Christmas time to check it out.
There we go. There we
Yeah.
go. Yes.
Another past guest I actually had on this show was Austin Pendleton,
Oh yeah.
like the Austin Pendleton,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who was in the very first ever Muppet movie alongside
Right.
of Charles Durning, who also
Yeah.
was in Mrs. Santa
Ah,
Claus.
there's the connection. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that he talked a lot about his friendship with Charles Durning, and that makes me wonder if you got to know Charles well, and what was he like to you?
Completely great working relationship. I did feel like a real camaraderie with him. And because I remember him saying it wasn't the first time he played Santa, and he was.
He also did Santa not too long after that on a Sesame Street Christmas special.
Oh yes, yes. And beforehand too.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, something. I can't think what it was, but yeah, I remember chatting a lot with him.
Okay.
Complete sweetheart, and also I love Dog Day Afternoon, and you know, he to me it's one of the greatest New York movies. So we got to talk about that. I was interested in everything behind the scenes on that, and also that I knew that he was a song and dance guy coming in. You know, I didn't think we used him enough. In fact, there's only so much you could do in 2 hours of commercials, you know, and but in Best Little Whorehouse, I think he has the best number in the movie, you know, and he really dances, and I was sort of lobbying for that, and for Jeter, because I knew he could dance too, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like a full-length Broadway musical where you can like serve every character with their specialty number. We just, you know, it's TV, it just has to keep moving along, moving along. And Jerry was getting used to that also, about the pace of writing TV, and how there always has to be a visual component. It can't just be, well, and then somebody stands in the middle of the stage and gets hit with a spotlight and sings a ballad. You know, it's TV. You have to keep visuals moving and all that. And I think I learned more about writing my own musicals from Jerry and that experience at any class I took, anything. It was just watching the way that mind clicked was so fascinating. And I mean, I just finished a musical in New York, Romeo and Bernadette.
Right. I was just about to ask you because I had known that you were doing that for a while, so I was going to ask, what are you working on right now? You want to share?
Yeah. Well, moving that along to the next step. But you asked the music director on that, and I was constantly quoting Jerry. You know, I just think it in my head. You know, what Jerry would say, that's too many lines between the songs. What Jerry would say, you know, and it nothing seemed wrong. You know, no matter how many years later, there's just certain physics about writing a musical, and the balance of scenes to songs, spoken words to sung words, all that was from Jerry. So, you know, much gratitude there.
Awesome. Well, I hope that Romeo and Bernadette continues to go well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to say to finish up?
Pretty much it. I'm grateful to revisit these days. You know, all these memories I haven't had. You know, if something get triggered, I'm just going to bask in them for the rest of the evening.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to bring back a lot of memories for you, because you and I have been talking about doing this for quite a while.
Yeah, that's true.
But we've both been so bloody busy, which is totally which I understand. I mean, a lot of the time I get asked, so who's your next guest? But and it was around the time that you and I started talking about this that I was getting that a lot, but you know, I couldn't answer because secrets. We hadn't had anything concrete yet, and plus I've become so busy lately that I've been kind of doing nostalgia talk kind of sporadically, but to you listeners out there, I can promise you there will be an episode number 48 and also a 49.
There you go.
And 50. So
Bravo.
I am in talks with people now, but again, secrets. If you want to hear news and updates about that, you know where to go. Facebook.com/Nostalgia Talk YouTube. Link in the description. Mark, thank you very much for agreeing to come on the show. We finally made it work.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. It just shows. So thanks for inviting me.
No problem. And to all of you listeners out there. Oops, wrong button. Peace.
Take care. Bye-bye.